Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of
That Got Dark.
There It Is. As always, I am your host, Kezaya, and we have
Hey, fun.
There he is. So, today I thought that we would take one final case, just one more week to kind of wrap up everything that I had been researching and planning, and then next week I think we'll jump on to the first episode in the Netflix season 2. Unsolved Mysteries.
Waiting to watch this.
Yes. I know you're excited because there's ghosties.
There's ghosties! And our town is horrible too.
Yep. Our town is... I really can't wait to do that episode so I can tell everybody online how fucking terrible our town is. Right. So how do you feel about child murder?
I think we've already established my feelings on child murder. So it's bad.
So like one more episode should be fine, right?
I told you to give me a normal death, okay?
I'll give you normal. I haven't.
like some cheating wife that probably deserved it. Why? Why do you have to torture me with these kids? And then this time, she plays some emotional bullshit on me and sends me pictures or videos of the case we're about to do, showing what I'm going to assume is the calm before the horrible storm, and really emotionally manipulating me to hate this son of a bitch. If it goes the way I'm assuming it's going to go.
Yes. Now there is one more thing.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just going to put this out there to everybody. I am not trying to be a bitch, but if you are a Chris Watts supporter, please steer clear of this case, because what I am not going to put up with is victim blaming. And I'm not saying that means you can't ever watch or listen to my podcast again or anything like that, but we are not going to victim blame on this podcast. And that includes this case, because for some oddball reason, everybody likes blaming the victim in this case, like the murdered woman. And I'm like, we're not going to do that.
Well, we'll see how this case goes, but I you know what? Fuck it. I will just call you out on that bullshit if I see it the way you don't see it.
I mean, yes, but what we're not going to do is victim blame. I try really hard with all of the cases that I do, even if I don't like the person that got murdered or that was, whatever happened. I try really hard not to victim blame, because the victim had no control over what happened to them. And there's always another way out that isn't killing somebody, or at least most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time there's a way out. And this guy had a very easy out that he could have taken, but instead he chose to kill his 3-year-old, his 4-year-old, and his wife.
Spoilers.
So,
well, we don't need to do the podcast. We already know what's about to happen.
So, on this podcast, if that's what you're about, then please from this episode and come back for another one, but we're not going to victim blame.
So what you're saying is there's a lot of Chris Watts supporters out there?
Okay. So now that that's out of the way, no victim blaming, let's talk about the case. So those videos I sent you, what did you think?
Well, if I didn't know that we do a podcast where people are terrible, fucking shitty people, I would say, man, that seems like a really good family. So nice, happy, doing some fun stuff. He's doing push-ups with his girls. So sweet.
Mm-hmm.
But then I remembered we do a podcast where we talk about the worst, darkest bullshit of humanity. And I just have a feeling that bad things are going to happen to the people I saw in that video.
Yes. So the first one we're going to talk about is the wife. I'm pretty sure that she was at least in one or two of the videos that I sent you. Her name was Shanann. She had really pretty, like, black hair that came just below her shoulders, and she was a budding entrepreneur. And, like, as horrible as it sounds, I'm going to say it like this: she was in an MLM. So she was in, like, a Mary Kay type of situation. I can't remember the name of the company that she worked for, but I know that that's what she was doing as a job.
Oh,
She
okay. So she had little host parties where she sold makeup and shit.
Well, she worked for a company that I believe sold, like, shakes and stuff like that. But yes, essentially, like, she did, like,
One of
the
those things.
the MLM
I think
type of work.
My mom used to do Tupperware parties and shit.
I see. Okay. Well, and that's why she was on Facebook so much. So those videos that I sent you all came off of Shanann's Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of people, and that's why I started out the video or the podcast the way that I did, because a lot of people say that, like, for some reason they, like, love Chris and hate Shanann, and they're like, oh, she was an absent mother, oh, she was this, oh, she was that. But every time that I watch those videos, all I see is a woman who loves her children dearly, very much.
I mean, I didn't see anything to argue that.
So she was born on January 10th, 1984, and she died on August 13th, 2018.
And those were from 2017, so that was a year before.
Yes. And then I should have sent you the video where she tells Chris that she's pregnant, because that was the first time, like, I remember when, like, this case first came out, because, like, I've been watching this case for a while. Like, Stephanie Harlow did a video on this case when it first started, like, before Chris even went to trial. That's how, like, quick she was to jump on this case, right? And I've been watching the case since then. And I remember when the video of Chris finding out that Shanann was pregnant came out, that was the first time, like, I remember seeing through the facade, and I remember being like, he fucking hates his life, because he just did not seem very happy that he was about to be responsible for another child with this woman.
I mean, he seemed to be really good with his kids in these videos.
Yes, but he completely betrays their trust later. Like, there's literally a video where
considering I have a feeling I know where this is going. Considering I have a feeling I know where this is going, I'm sure there was way more than just a betrayal of trust.
I mean, yes.
Sorry.
So Shanann had lupus, I think, in, like, 2012 or maybe 2011. And she met Chris during this time. And I don't know what you know about lupus, but typically when somebody has lupus, they are. So what that means is that they are very sick for a very long amount of time without any improvement, right?
I know a little bit, but not, like, details.
Yes. So, like, when I say chronically sick, there's this girl on YouTube that I watch, and she's literally been sick since before 2016 when she started her channel. That's what I think of when I think of chronically sick, but Shanann was able to get it under control and get to a point where she could have children and build a life with Chris, which is really, really good, because a lot of times when people get lupus or get chronically sick, they don't come back from it, or at least it takes them a very, very long time. And she worked very hard. And actually, from what she talks about in one of my places of research was a Netflix documentary, she says that Chris was very helpful in that he, like, went to all of her doctor's appointments. He went to her colonoscopy with her. Like, she says that he was very supportive through all of this. So I don't know when it changed, but according to her, how supportive he was is what made her marry him, and she married Chris in 2012. So about a year after that, about a year after they get married, they have their first daughter. Her name was Bella. She was 4 when all of this happened. She was born on December 17th, 2013, and she died the same day as her mother, August 13th, 2018.
So I'm just going to assume that all these children died on the same day.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that would be a safe assumption. And Bella she loved her dad. And she was like, when you watch the videos, Bella is the oldest one, and she is just so sweet. She's so cute. Like, she looks like she was just genuinely a really good kid. And like, Shanann loved her daughter. And so her and Chris were really excited in 2015, 2 years after that, when they got to welcome another daughter named Celeste. And Celeste was born on July 17th, 2015, and she died the same day as her mother and sister. Shanann says that Celeste was a very rambunctious child. She ran around, she climbed on stuff, she did crazy things. And Bella was she was like the opposite, which typically happens when you have kids. Like, I remember being really chill, and then like my sister being like really crazy. Like, it took her a while to get there because of some things going on. But once she hit that point, she was crazy and she was running around and climbing on things, you know? So typically parents will have 2 children that have like opposing personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Bella and Cece were no exception. When I talk about Celeste, by the way, I will refer to her as Cece because that's what her parents and her sister referred to her as. They didn't call her Celeste on a regular basis. So you saw the same videos that I sent you. And Chris seemed very happy with his girls. He seemed very happy with his wife. I mean, would you disagree?
No. That's why I said you're emotionally manipulating me to want to really hate this guy.
Yep. He loved his wife. He loved his kids. At least that's what it looked like. And some people say that it was truly one of those cases, like, you know, when they say when you have a relationship and it's all the way online, or you put it out there all the time online that you only show the good sides of your relationship.
Oh yeah.
That's
The people who are having problems at home and then online it's like, oh, everything was so good. We just went on a date and it was fantastic, and forgot to mention that he treated her like shit all the time.
Yep. So according to them, it really was like a very like that was what they did. Like that it was one of those situations where they were showing the best of their relationship. And there's lots of information out there that say that there's a lot of opposing information is what I mean. Like, some people say that Shanann was very loving to Chris and treated him very good, and then some people are like, mostly Shanann haters, like people that love Chris Watts, are like, no, she was controlling and she did this and she did that and she didn't pay attention to her kids and like all this crazy stuff, which is like, even if that was true, doesn't justify her being murdered.
Right. It's like,
I mean,
you were kind of controlling. Death sentence.
Literally, like, I'm like, these people, like, when they justify Chris killing her, I'm like, so if your husband's controlling, are you going to kill him? No, you're probably just going to leave, you know? But
I'm sorry, but if this is going the way I think it is, any kind of sympathy that I would have for Chris Watts went out the door once 3 little girls also died.
Mm-hmm. Well, two little girls. The child that Shanann was pregnant with was a boy. His name was Nico.
Oh, she was.
She was in her second trimester.
The first video had 3 kids in it, didn't
it? Yes, but that first video was somebody else's. Like, it was like Shanann's niece or Chris's niece or something like that. The two, yeah. So Shanann was pregnant with a little boy named Nico. She was in her second trimester. That's why when Chris was convicted, he got convicted of unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Because at that point, Shanann was very far along and like they had names picked out. They were getting ready to start the nursery. Like, you know, it was pretty serious. Like, you know, she was so excited because Chris wanted a boy so bad. He wanted a little boy so bad, and she was like so excited because she could finally give that to him. She was like, I've given him 2 girls, I want to give him a little boy. And when she found out it was a boy, she was like super excited because she really wanted to give Chris that, because that was like what he wanted. And you've been married, you have kids, so like, you know, I'm sure that even if things didn't, like, you know, things didn't work out between you and your wife, I'm sure that you never thought about killing her when she was pregnant. Like, I don't think that's a thought that crosses a normal person's mind.
I'm glad you really had to associate me with that, but no, full disclosure, I am divorced. All of my children and my ex-wife is all alive.
Yes, they're all living. Thank goodness. Stephen is not a wife killer and a child killer.
Yeah. I'm trying to get famous off podcasting, not by murdering my family.
Yes. We'll talk about some things here at the end of this case, because there's some things that have come out. Like, again, I said that the person I watched the most when this case came out, like, I remember like watching her videos as the case was progressing, was Stephanie Harlow's videos. She comes out a little bit later after Chris has been tried and he's in prison, and she tells us some interesting things that he says. And after I tell you what he did to his family, then I'll tell you those things that he said, and I will let you have an opinion on that. Because I actually was not able to find that information anywhere else, but Stephanie's videos are typically pretty reliable. I don't know where she finds her information, but I'll look up the letter that she was talking about, because she was talking about a letter that he wrote to his mother, and tell you some of the things that he says in it. So we'll talk about that closer to the end. But first of all, let's talk about when Shanann was initially reported missing, okay?
Great.
So Shanann was reported missing, I believe it was on the 13th. And it was because, so she had a best friend named Nicole, or Nikki. Lots of her and Chris and like the girls called her Nikki. And Nikki went to the house because, oh, by the way, they lived in Colorado. I meant to mention that.
Oh, by the way.
They lived in Colorado. And so Nikki had texted Shanann because they had just gotten back from I think the company she worked for was Lavelle, but I could be wrong. But they had just gotten back from one of their company trips for the company that they worked for, because Nikki did the same job. And she had a doctor's appointment, Shanann did, for the baby, because the baby, something was wrong with the baby, and, you know, she was really nervous to go to the doctor's appointment. And Nikki was like, if you need me to take you, just give me a call and I'll, you know, get dressed and take you. And she didn't hear from Shanann after she sent that text message, so she was like, just let me know how it goes. Well, hours later, like we're into the afternoon at this point, she never hears anything. So she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go over there. Chris isn't home. You know, maybe she passed out. I think she had maybe prenatal diabetes. So she was like concerned that maybe her sugar had dropped, which is a very real concern. If you guys know anybody with diabetes, you guys would know that, you know, their sugar can drop in an instant and they can be like literally down. Like it literally could take less than 15 minutes if they took too much insulin, or, you know, depending on what's going on. So she's like, I'll just go over and check on her. Well, she gets to the house. She can see Shanann's shoes and Shanann's purse. Her car is in the garage with the girls' car seats. She can see all of this from outside of the house. So she calls Chris and she's like, hey, have you heard from your wife? I haven't heard from her. And he's like, no, I haven't heard from her. She said she was taking the girls on a play date, though, so don't be freaked out. And Nikki was like, yeah, but her shoes are here. Her purse is here. Like, everything's here. So she gets worried. She decides that she's going to hang up with Chris and call the police. She calls the police, And Nikki is very, like, you can tell on the 911 call that she's very, very concerned. She's like, my friend has diabetes. I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning and I haven't heard from her since. I'm really worried about her. Could you guys come over and do a wellness check? I'm at her house. This is the address. I'll meet you here. So they get there and nobody comes to the door when the police are knocking at the door or anything, right? So they're like, this is a little bit weird. Let's call somebody who has to do with this house, right? So they call Chris, and Chris is like, well, I'll be home as soon as I can, because he worked for an oil company, which we'll talk more about later. He's like, I'll be home as soon as I possibly can. I don't know how long it'll take, though, because I don't know how traffic is, right? Reasonable response. So Nikki then calls Shanann's parents. I think Shanann's parents might have like had their names on the house or something, because, and it's not something that I knew until I watched the Netflix documentary, because in the Netflix documentary, Nikki is like talking on the phone to Shanann's parents, and the cops are like, well, we can't do anything until we talk to the house owner. And Nikki's like, he's the house owner. Like, if I give you the phone, can you talk to him? Well, just as they are getting to that point, Chris pulls up. And Chris has a very strange line of behavior at this point. He walks up to the cop, shakes his hand, doesn't seem concerned at all. But then all of a sudden, it's like a switch flips, and he takes off running and opens the garage. And he like runs to Shanann's car and like opens the door. And he could have been doing anything. He could have been trying to make himself look concerned. I know that like when I watched Stephanie Harlow's videos, she speculated that maybe he took something out of the car. Like maybe he had put something in the car, or Shanann had left something in the car that would have led to her being found earlier than she was, and she might have taken something out of the car. I don't know. But that is something that she speculated. Personally, I think that he was putting something in the car. I think that maybe, knowing what he does later, I think maybe he was putting something in the car so that if they decided to check her car, it looked normal. Because remember, Shanann's best friend was there, so if something significant was missing out of her car, she would have been like, that's not what her car normally like. And so I think he was leaving something in the car to make it look more normal. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, running around like a crazy person, it's possible he's trying to make himself look concerned.
Right.
But, without knowing what was found in the car, I don't have an opinion on that yet.
I don't think they ever searched the car, which is why, like I said, when Stephanie Harlow did her videos on the subject, she never said, this is what he was doing. This is what I know he was doing. She too had to speculate, and same with Kendall Ray, and same with the news outlets in Colorado at the time. They all speculated about what was being done in the car in that time, because the contents of the car were never released, besides the fact that the two girls' car seats were in the car. So we don't know what was in the car. Chris goes into the house and goes from the garage to the living room, and he's like yelling. He's like, Shanann, Bella, he's like, again, trying to make himself look extremely concerned. Opens the door and lets the cop in. At this point, Nikki is still on the phone with Shanann's parents, and Shanann's mom is like, I give you permission to go into my daughter's house. Go into my daughter's house right now. Cop enters the house. Nikki enters the house, and they start looking around. And at first, things seem really normal. And technically, the last place that I watched the body cam footage was the Netflix documentary. But I've also watched the body cam footage elsewhere. There's a lot of people on YouTube as well that do like body language analysis, right?
Oh, okay.
So I've watched it. there. I've watched it on the Netflix documentary, and I've watched just the plain old videos as well. Because, quite frankly, when like you haven't seen them, I didn't send them to you because I didn't know how you would respond to them. Being a father and having kids, I didn't know if it would upset you, so I just didn't send them.
Well, I also like being like in the dark on these cases too. So
Right. So when you watch the body cam footage, it's very clear that Chris does not give two fucks about his wife. And the reason that I say that, like he made it overly obvious that he knew something because he was literally on his phone the whole time. Like they checked every room in the house, and then once every room in the house had been checked, he was on his phone texting. He claims that he was texting people to find out if they had seen Shanann. But personally, if my significant other was missing with my two children, I feel like I'd be making more phone calls than I would text messages, just because I'd be trying to figure out what was going on. And it's easier to talk to somebody over the phone than it is to text somebody.
I mean, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure this guy is a giant prick, I can see someone like texting because you can reach to a bunch of people, and if they're busy, you don't have to. I can see texting people over that. I mean, and then if somebody has information, then I would call them. But I mean, I have never been put in this position, so I can't say from experience what I would do. But that doesn't seem super suspicious to me.
I think the part that seems suspicious to me is that, like, when you watch the body cam footage, until they go over to the neighbor's house to see his security cam footage, because he actually had security cam footage of the night before.
Okay.
Until they went over to see that security cam footage, Chris did not put his phone down. And at this point, he already knows that his wife and children are dead. We'll find out exactly what happened later, but he knows that they're gone. And he is now faking, like, he's trying to fake it as well as he possibly can. He sent like 3 texts to Shanann. He was like, if you're okay, call me, please, shoot me a text if everything's good. So the cops are like, what happened last night?
Right.
It's super weird, let's just talk about what happened last night, just the same thing they would do with anybody, right?
Of course.
And Chris tells them, let me see if I can find it. I did write down his first initial story. He says his first story is that Shanann gets home at 2:00 in the morning, which lines up with Nikki's story. He says that she went to bed and then he got up for work at 5 and she got up with him and they had an emotional discussion. He refused to say argument. And he was questioned by news outlets and another cop, a detective. Like, he was questioned by a bunch of people, and he never said the word argument. I think because the word argument might have made him look suspicious.
Fair enough. Did he say what the emotional discussion was about?
About him wanting to end the marriage with Shanann.
Oh, he wanted a divorce.
Yes. That's what he claims. He claims that Shanann came home and he had decided that the fire in their relationship was gone, which, if he had really asked her for a divorce, I would say, okay, I can understand how that would be an emotional conversation as opposed to an argument. But the way that he was so adamant on it being an emotional discussion sticks out to me as a little suspicious.
A little suspicious.
No, suspicious. I don't know. Chris Watts is sus. That's what's happening right here. And I think that the cops actually started to maybe think that something was going on. So they actually had the detective that came in later interview him to see if the story changed. And the story changed drastically. So originally Chris had said that he had a conversation with Shanann at 2 a.m.
I thought he said it when he woke up at 5.
No. You're right. He said that Shanann got home at 2 a.m. And then when the detective questioned him, he had like this really specific time. Like, 1:47 or 2:15. I don't remember exactly what the specific time that Chris said was, but he had a very specific time for the detective, which was the first change. The second change was that he changed the time that they had this emotional discussion, and he changed the time that he went to work. So basically the whole story changed, which is a huge red flag to police.
Yeah. I mean, lies are traditionally a red flag, yes.
Oh, yes. And, we were talking about it. Nikki was genuinely concerned for her friend. And when you look at the body cam footage, you can tell that there's a huge difference between the way that Chris is acting and the way that Nikki's acting. Chris is acting super nonchalant and just like, oh, geez, like he really wasn't, trying to be that energetic about it, right? Nikki was super energetic. She's like, where would she have gone? Do you know who the friend is that she was supposed to go see today? Blah, 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 blah. Nikki was very energetic trying to find her friend. Well, the story shifts and changes when Chris goes into their bedroom, the master bedroom, and claims that he found Shanann's wedding ring. He's like, oh no, look, it's her wedding ring. Like, he put on this big show, right?
Oh, she must have accepted my divorce. Oh, see, everything's
Well,
fine,
yeah.
guys. It's all good. Found the wedding ring. She just left me. It's cool.
Well, and then on top of that, like, the only things that were missing besides the wedding ring were literally the two girls as blankies. And we'll find out why those are missing later.
You know what? I'm just going to guess that he wrapped them up in there.
He used them to he used the blankets to smother.
Oh, that's
his girls,
so much worse.
But,
That's so much worse. Their favorite blankies from
yes,
their favorite daddy.
Blankies.
Oh,
yes.
I need a minute.
So, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's supposed to be, the blankie is supposed to be a security blanket. It's supposed to make them feel safe. That is just.
Yeah. I mean, we can
Chris
definitely
Watts.
talk a little bit more.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, fuck you, Chris Watts. You remember how I said we're not victim blaming here? The only person that we're going to rip on is Chris Watts. Yeah, this is why. So Chris is like, oh, their blankies are gone and Shanann's wedding ring is here, right? And like, I don't know what this guy was thinking. This guy clearly didn't watch enough true crime. I mean, shit, he didn't even watch enough unsolved mysteries. Like, this guy, like, he left her shoes in the house. He left her purse in the house. He left her medications. He left the girl's clothes. He left all this stuff that if Shanann was really going to leave, she would have taken.
You're saying this guy is not a criminal genius, is what you're trying to say?
I'm just saying it's a very weak attempt at making it look like she left you. That's all I'm saying. Are you going to disagree with me?
Not a criminal genius. I'm on board. Go ahead. Go.
Okay. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the fact that Shanann knew that something was up. Now, like I said, I watched Stephanie Harlow's videos when this case initially came out, but we never saw. Shanann knew something was up. So, and the reason I say that is because when you watch the Netflix documentary, they actually put out the text messages between Shanann and Chris leading up to the murder.
Oh, okay.
So, like I said, I was watching Stephanie Harlow's videos when the case first came out. But when the Netflix documentary came out and I watched that, I was like, holy shit, she literally knew that this guy was about to leave her.
Oh. She thought he was going to leave, not just, make her leave this plane of existence.
Yes. Let me see if I can find exactly where I talk about the text messages. Okay, here it is. So in the text messages, we find out that Shanann had gone to North Carolina, which is where her parents live and Chris's parents live. And Cece was allergic to nuts. She's like allergic to every single nut. Like they can't make pistachio. Like literally there's one of Shanann's Facebook videos where she's talking about how they have to be really careful because they were going to make Italian cookies, but they had to be really careful because Cece's allergic to like every kind of nut. So they couldn't have any nut cookies, and they all like nut cookies. So they were like, we have to be really careful, right? Well, I guess at some point when Shanann was down in North Carolina, she met with Chris's parents to let them see the girls, which I think is a fucking saint move, you know? Like, unless I'm getting along, like, unless I love my in-laws like they're my own parents, I'm not going to probably take the time to stop and, you know, spend time with them if my spouse isn't with me, because she took this trip by herself. Chris was not with her.
Yeah.
So, maybe, you know, that's just me personally.
Maybe she just wanted to know who created this piece of shit.
Well, I mean, so Chris's parents didn't like Shanann anyway, I don't think.
Oh.
Because, and I don't think Chris's sister liked her either. Like, there was this idea that Shanann was taking away their son and their brother instead of... So typically when a marriage happens, it's like we're adding a person to our family, right? Mm-hmm. They saw her as taking somebody away from their family, which they really shouldn't have done. And so they really didn't like Shanann anyway. So they go to see Chris's parents. And at some point while they're there, I don't know what exactly happened. I assume there was some nuts involved, because Shanann texts Chris later that day and she's like, you should really call your dad and tell him that you didn't appreciate your mom putting your daughter's life at risk today. Which I agree, she really shouldn't have put him in the middle. But also at the same time, I would hope that, I mean, if, you know, Shanann was pissed off because in some way her mother-in-law put Cece at risk, and you have kids and you had a wife. So if your wife called you and was like, hey, your mom put Xavier's life at risk and I do not appreciate it, you probably would not be too pleased with your mother. You know, that's your kid. You're not going to be pleased with her because she put your kid's life at risk.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Chris didn't really seem to care, which, you know, to me was weird. I'm sure to you is weird. You're like, that's, you know, your child, you know, what? But whatever. So he didn't care. He didn't respond to Shanann until like later that evening. And at that point, he was like, I'm sorry I missed your call. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry that. And Shanann was like, fuck you. Like, you can fucking ignore me all day long, but you should have called your kids. Like, at this point, they had been down there, I think, for like a few days at least. And every time that the girls had spoken to Chris, it had been because Shanann called Chris, not because Chris called his girls. And she was like, that's kind of bullshit. You're kind of acting like a dipshit of a father. Call your girls, right? Which isn't unreasonable. And so Chris calls his girls that night and talks to them. Now we're going to take a pause from what's happening in North Carolina and talk about what Chris is doing during this time.
Strippers.
So a while back, before Shanann had gone to North Carolina, I don't know exactly how much time before then, Chris had started messing around with a girl from work. So when Shanann took his girls to North Carolina for a week or a week and a half or whatever, he was at the sand dunes, I think in California, with his girlfriend, Nicole Kissinger.
Oh. He's a bigger prick than I even knew. Okay, I guess than having an affair, but still, this really doesn't paint him in a better picture or anything.
No. And I will say this, I'm not going to talk about Nicole Kissinger. Lots of people have their own opinions about Nicole Kissinger. But Nicole Kissinger actually went and, like, she didn't turn herself in because the cops weren't looking for her, but she definitely was like, she went to the cops and told them what had been going on. And I respect that a lot, because she could, you know, the cops could have decided that she was involved and she could have gone to prison. I don't believe that Nicole was involved. I believe that Chris probably, a lot of people say that because she deleted her text messages that she was involved. I don't think so. I think Chris probably told her that he had killed his kids, and I think she was too scared to tell initially, so she deleted all of her text messages and dumped him. And I think she was too scared to tell until she realized that he had actually done it. I think maybe she just thought he was joking or whatever.
Yeah, because people just joke. It's like, hey, how's it going? I just sort of murdered my family. Funny, huh?
Well, I really don't know, because I really don't know what the case is. I don't know why Nicole deleted her messages. I don't think she knew that Chris was going to kill his girls. Maybe he had told her that he was going to kill Shanann, and I'm sure that she thought that that wasn't serious. I don't know why she deleted those text messages, but when you watch her police interview, the way that she responds to the girls being dead is gut-wrenching. Like, she literally breaks down in hysterics and starts crying about the girls. She's like, I just don't understand how somebody could kill their kids. She was like, I don't have any kids, but I don't understand how anybody could ever do that. They're babies. So she was very open about that.
Maybe she was scared. She just, once she figured out, holy shit, this man just murdered his wife and 2 children. I'm not in any...
Right. Well, and not to mention that I don't think she really found out that Chris was in trouble until he was arrested, because the week that Shanann went missing, a couple of days after she was reported missing, if that, literally, I think the night that she went missing, he put their house on the market and started looking for apartments with Nicole.
Oh.
So I don't know. Nicole doesn't seem like she was involved. That's just me personally. This seems like something Chris did. Have you ever seen those shows where there's the crazy boyfriend and he's like, I killed my whole family so that we can be together? I think that's what this situation was. I don't think she knew what was going on. I don't think she knew it was going to happen. I think he just came up to her one day and was like, so I killed my wife and kids. We can be together now. And that probably scared the fuck out of her.
Some guys give flowers. Others murder their family for you. Very, very romantic.
Yes. Yeah, so I am not going to dish on Nicole Kissinger. If you guys have any opinions on Nicole Kissinger, feel free to tell us about it on the Unsolved Mystery or the Unsolved Comedies Instagram page, or email us. Feel free to do that. Maybe you can tell Steven on Twitter, but we're not going to rip on her in this podcast. There's just not enough information for me to rip on her and feel good about it. I'm not hearing.
The deleting of text messages could be anything. That could be do they know for sure whatever those text messages even had anything to do with his family? It could be him threatening her or something like that. It could be anything.
They never released what was said in those text messages. That I'm sure they were able to find them, because you can find any text messages that are deleted. Police can go into your phone and find them. Or they can request them from your phone provider. So if they found out what those text messages were about, they never said. I know that in her search history, she was looking at wedding dresses and stuff, and wedding venues and stuff like that. But I don't think that necessarily means that she thought she was going to marry Chris. Everybody's like, she thought she was going to marry Chris. She was happy that his kids were gone. And I don't think that's the case. I'm 21, and I still sometimes go online and look at wedding rings, engagement rings, and look at wedding dresses and wedding venues and different things like that. And my boyfriend and I are not engaged or anything like that. We don't think we're going to get married for another 2 years at least.
Well, those text messages could be as simple as him texting her and saying, hey, me and my wife split up. We can be together now. And it could be as simple as she felt guilty once she started realizing things.
Yeah. And I think that that's entirely possible, especially because at some point she told Chris to work on his marriage.
Really?
She got really annoyed with him because he had said something along the lines of, I love you. But he was literally when he went to North Carolina, because he went to North Carolina a week before Shanann and the girls came home. When he went to North Carolina, he called her and he was like, I love you, Nicole. And she was like, don't fucking tell me that when you're going to lay in bed with another woman. Yes, it's your wife, but don't tell me that when you're going to go and lay in bed with somebody else. Work on your fucking marriage, Chris. Like, she was pissed, right? And at that point, I think she honestly thought that they were done until she gets a call a few days later telling her that they could be together. Because when she initially met Chris, he told her that he was in the middle of a divorce.
Oh, that old chestnut. I'm getting a divorce, even though I haven't told my wife this.
Yeah. So, like, Nicole didn't even find out that Shanann was pregnant until it was released to the media. And that's when she turned herself into police. That's when she went to the cops and was like, I know Chris. I was his mistress. I need to tell you what's going on because I just found out that she was pregnant and I think she might not be safe.
I hate cheaters and child murderers. Not necessarily.
Yes. So you have two reasons to hate this dude. So let's talk about the security cam footage real quick, and then we'll finish talking about what Shanann. Well, let's finish talking about what Shanann was texting her friends. So Shanann was texting Nicole every day. And then once.
So wait, the girl she's having an affair with is Nicole and her friend, or is that the same person?
Yes. No, they're separate.
Two Nicoles in
Nicole
this story.
Kissinger was.
Gotcha. Just making sure. I was like, wait a minute, yes. Nicole, wait a minute. Did I miss something here?
Okay, so here's what we'll do. I'll call her best friend, Nikki, and I'll call Chris's mistress, Nicole. Okay, so that way we have a separation. So she's texting Nikki like every day, and she's like, something's not right. He's not talking to me. He's gone 5 weeks without sex, and he hasn't talked about it once to me. So she's starting to get suspicious because I guess they had a very healthy sex life. And at some point, he started rejecting her and not wanting to have sex with her and things like that, which you have to notice differences in your relationship. Like, if you're with somebody that doesn't want to have sex very often, you're probably, it's not going to be a red flag to you that they don't want to have sex. But if you're with somebody that wants to have sex 24/7, like all the time, like they're always in the mood, and then all of a sudden they don't want it, they haven't had it for 5 weeks, and they aren't even talking about it, it's a little bit of a red flag. You know what I'm saying? So she was in the latter. Chris and her apparently had a very healthy sex life. And at some point, he just stopped talking about it, and didn't want to give it to her. And she thought it was just maybe he was going through something at first. And then when she was gone in North Carolina for a week or a week and a half, whatever, and they hadn't had sex in 5 weeks, she was like, of course, when he gets here, he's going to absolutely have to fuck me type situation, he's, she's trusting her husband. She's thinking he's not getting it from anywhere else. And she's thinking that that's what's going to happen. Well, between the day that Chris got there and the day that they went to the beach, I don't know exactly how the days fell. They could have been one could have been the next day. It could have been the same day. I really don't know. But she sends a text to Nikki and she's like, he kissed me once since he's been in town. And that was at the airport, and then a couple of days later, she's like, he doesn't even want to touch me. He won't even she was like, I'm literally laying over here naked, trying to get some, and he's doing a push-up challenge. She could clearly tell that something was going on. And, maybe I'll have to have you watch the Netflix documentary sometime and we can do another episode on this case, but she literally could tell that something was going on. She was pissed. And she even said to Nikki at some point, I think, that he's got to be getting it from somewhere else because he's not getting it from me right now. And Nikki was like, don't think like that. Just don't worry. When you guys get home, everything will be fine. And there was about a week's worth of time in between when they got home and Shanann went on her business trip. And in that week, Chris completely rejected her. She did everything that would have been obvious to him. Everybody has obvious tics that tells you that they, that they're feeling like they want something, And she did every single one of her personal tells. And he completely ignored her. She said something to him about it, and he completely rejected her. And she said that she cried in her room for over an hour. So by the time she went on her business trip, she was pretty sure that Chris was sleeping with somebody, but he wouldn't admit to it.
Yeah, cheaters are really big into telling the truth.
Oh, yeah, really. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the security cam footage, because everything that I've told you is everything that we have. Like, I've kind of told it out of order, but the business trip and her coming back from the business trip was where we started this video or this podcast, because she came back and nobody's seen her. She was reported missing. So yes, I told this a little bit backwards, but we're going to go back to when the police are at the house, right? So the police are at the house, and the neighbor comes up to one of the cops, and he's like, yo, I've got a security camera that can see their house from, like, it can see their driveway from XYZ, right? So if anything happened to them, I would have seen the person go in if they went in from the front.
And then Chris Watts' heart dropped.
Literally. So the cops are super interested, and they're like, fuck yeah, let's go over and watch this, right?
I just want one of the cops to be like, fuck yeah, evidence, let's go.
So they go over and they watch this security cam footage. And the only interesting thing from 2:00 in the morning, which is when Shanann got dropped off, to that time in the day when the cops got there, is that Chris pulls his truck into the garage differently than he normally would. He never pulls his truck into the garage, according to his neighbor. But for some reason, that morning at 4:45, when he was getting ready to go to work, he backed his truck up into the driveway, and you see him come out 3 times. Obviously, one was with Shanann's body, and one was with each child.
Ugh. Son of a bitch.
So, yeah. So the cops get this info, and they're like, all right, look, we're going to talk to this Chris guy. We're going to, So they call him in. I don't remember what day it was. I have in my notes here that it was the 14th, but that doesn't make any sense because he had time to put their house on the market and do all of that shit. So at some point, Chris gets arrested. And when he's arrested, they call him in and they're like, we want to have you take... Well, he doesn't get arrested right away. He's like... The cops call him and they're like, why don't you come in and take a polygraph just to clear your name so that we can talk about, who could have really done this, right? And after he fails this polygraph is when we get confession number 1. Chris's confessions change, but the facts stay the same. I've heard some people say that Chris is innocent because his story changes so drastically. Like, you remember when we talked about the West Memphis 3 case and we talked about how Jesse Miss Kelly's story kept changing? Yeah. The difference is that they had no idea where the girls and Shanann's bodies were. Chris was able to tell them. That's how they know that Chris is guilty. That's how they know it wasn't a false confession, because he was able to tell them where the bodies were. So, confession number 1, he confesses to his father. He claims that Shanann killed the girls after he asked for a divorce, and in a blind rage, he killed her. And then he hid the bodies so that he could cover for Shanann, and tells them where the bodies are.
This is why motherfuckers are defending him, because they want to believe that he didn't kill the girls. Okay.
And the thing is that, so this story comes from the investigator, the polygraph giver. I don't know what the name is for them, but the person that gave the polygraph came in afterwards and was like, you're a really horrible liar. Has anybody ever told you that? And I think Chris honestly thought that he passed the polygraph. And then this woman comes in and she's like, you're a really bad liar. And he's probably like, fuck. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, are you maybe covering for somebody? And, you don't want to protect her. Tell us what happened. And when we look at what actually is said by the polygraph giver, she said that she never once suspected that anything happened to Shanann, but she thought that if she gave him an out where he would be less responsible, he would confess, which he did. Her plan worked. But because that story was put out there, lots of people want to victim blame Shanann, even though there's literally no proof that Shanann did anything. In fact, there's proof that Shanann was dead before either of the girls were.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me. To me, what would make more sense is the girls witnessed what happened to their mother, and he had to silence them, for lack of a better term.
Yes. So I think the reason that I think what happened, now we don't know exactly what happened. I'll tell you about the second confession that Chris gives here in a minute. But I think that what honestly happened, I think that Chris started to maybe talk to Shanann that morning about wanting a divorce. And I think Shanann called him out and was like, you've been fucking sleeping with somebody. You need to tell me who it is. They had an app on their phone where they could check like their bank statements and stuff. And she had seen where he went to dinner and it was supposed to be just him went to dinner. And like spent like 50 some odd dollars or something. And she was like, who the fuck did you take to dinner with you? So Shanann looks at her statement, her bank statement on her phone, and she knows the restaurant that he went to for dinner that night because they go there frequently. So she knows what dinner for 2 people looks like, and she knows what dinner for 1 person looks like. And
he was hungry.
He had to be fucking hungry. She was like,
you want steak and lobster, bitch.
Literally. He was like, he claimed to have gone to this dinner by himself, but he spent like close to $50.
And depending on where the restaurant is, it's unlikely, but it's possible to hit that $50, especially if you add tip.
Yes, but, according to Nikki, Shanann confronted him about this. And she was like, we go to this restaurant all the time. There's no fucking way that you spent $50 just on yourself. Who the fuck did you take with you? And I think that they had that conversation. I think that maybe that conversation was had or at least continued the morning that Shanann died.
So why do we know that she confronted him about his bank statement?
I know that it was a discrepancy. Nikki talked about it. She was like,
okay. Pissed. So she texted Nikki. Okay, gotcha. Now I get it.
So Nikki was like, they went to this restaurant often. She knew that it was bullshit that he spent $50 by himself. So even if we don't know for sure that she confronted him about it, that's what I would assume happened.
I'm not trying to defend him because right now I see him as giant piece of shit, but I know restaurants pretty well. And if you add some alcohol to that bill, $50 is not hard to spend.
Whatever it was kind of similar to like an Applebee's. And I've never spent $50 at Applebee's just by myself.
Well, you didn't mention Applebee's.
Yeah. Well, it's not an Applebee's, but it's like similar to that. I don't remember what the name of the restaurant was. It was in the Netflix documentary, and I should have wrote it down, but I didn't.
Like I said, it's on with that kind of restaurant. It's like mid-tier. Even at Applebee's, if you buy some high-end drinks, it can hit you $50 tip. You could throw $40 and then a $10 tip. Boom, right there. You get a $20 meal. Buy 2 drinks that are almost $10 each, tax, tip, $50 is possible.
I think that's what he did, but I think he did that with Nicole Kissinger. I think that the 2 drinks were for him and Nicole Kissinger.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. Seems like a cheating douchebag. I'm just trying to say that it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Also, I didn't mention this when I was talking about the polygraph, but he fails the polygraph, and the cops sit him down and they're like, what really happened, Chris? You failed the polygraph. And he's like, I didn't lie to you. And they're like, it doesn't fucking matter if you said that you lied to us anymore. At this point, we know you lied, you failed. And he's like, okay, I lied. I was having an affair, but I would never hurt Shanann. And they're like, are you fucking serious, dude? Like, we're trying to figure out where your wife and kids are, and you're trying to tell us about your, like, mistress. Like he was trying everything to not talk about his wife's death. Like, that was a big thing with the polygraph. I remember that too. Like, if you watch the polygraph video, like, it's weird. Like he's like flirting with the woman giving him the polygraph.
Hey, baby.
Like, it's just weird.
Don't worry about what happened to my wife. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh,
How
yeah.
you doing? You checking me out?
It's just weird. But back to the point. So he admits the first time. He's taken to prison, or at least to jail, awaiting charges. Well, sometime after he's in jail, he confesses a second time. And the second confession is what we think is the closest to the truth, but is not the truth.
Okay.
In the second confession, he claims that Shanann woke up with him when he was getting ready for work. Well, I guess technically it would have been a couple of hours prior. So I don't know exactly what time. He doesn't specify a time, but he's like, Shanann and I think they had sex, and after, like, everything was done, he was, like, sitting on top of her, and Shanann was like, who have you been cheating on me with? Like, she was trying to get it out of him. And he said that he was trying to talk her down and trying to convince her that he wasn't cheating. And at some point, when he was sitting on top of his pregnant wife, he gets pissed off and starts to strangle her. And he says that he knew she was gone because when people die, they use the bathroom. And that's how he could tell that she was dead.
Oh, so wait. So he's saying that I knew she was dead because as I was strangling her, she took a shit.
I mean, I guess, like, he was like when you listen to it, he's like, I guess when some people die, they go to the bathroom. And that's how I knew that she was dead.
Cartman was fucking right.
I mean, it is scientifically proven because all of your muscles relax. So if there's anything in there, it's going to come out, you know?
Jeez.
Like, actually, I remember my mom telling me that. That's a scientific thing. Like, my mom was telling me that.
No, I've heard it. I've heard it as well. It's just.
Yeah. Like, I remember my mom telling me that in high school. And my mom was like, I guess one of her friends had, like, something had happened to him and he died. And, like, that's how she found out that, like, when you die, all your muscles relax and, like, you go to the bathroom. So, according to him, while he was trying to figure out what to do with his now dead wife, Cece comes in, or no, it's Bella. Bella comes in and she's like, Daddy, what's wrong with Mommy? And Chris goes, Mommy's just not feeling well, but we're going to take a car ride. Why don't you go get your blankie? So I'm assuming this is about 5:00 because I remember Chris saying that they had sex before he went to work. So I'm assuming that now this is about 5:00. He probably killed Shanann about 4:45 or whatever, and probably decided that he was going to take her body to an oil field at about 5. So he goes and gets Bella and Cece and gets them, I think, like, gets them their blankies and everything. And he's like, just wait here. And he takes Shanann wrapped in garbage bags, or I think she was either wrapped in garbage bags or a sheet, but I really think it was a sheet. Maybe it was, like, wrapped in a sheet and then garbage bags. I don't remember for sure, but I think she was wrapped in a sheet. And he carries her downstairs and puts her in the back seat at the, like, on the floor in the back seat of his pickup truck. He then goes upstairs and gets Bella and puts her in the back seat of the truck and puts Cece in the back seat of the truck with her. And so the girls are sitting there in the truck with their dead mother at their feet, and they have no idea.
Oh, fuck.
Chris says that he then drove to an oil field where he worked on a regular basis, got out of the car, dug a very shallow grave, like barely covered, like barely was deep enough to like just like cover Shanann's body, like she was almost sticking out of it. Puts Shanann in the grave and covers her up with dirt. He then claims that he went to go get, I think he killed Cece first. He goes to get Cece and he smothers her with the blanket and puts her down on the ground. And then goes to Bella, and Bella says, Daddy, is the same thing that's happened to Cece gonna happen to me? And he doesn't say if he responds to her or anything, but he does say that when she started smothering her, she said, no, Daddy. So she was, and when you look at the autopsy for these people, Shanann didn't fight. I don't think that there was any evidence that she fought, and Chris even said she didn't fight. Cece was too small to fight. But Bella, when you look at the injuries, Bella bit her tongue and her cheek because she was fighting so hard against her dad who was trying to kill her.
This motherfucker.
He then picks up his two girls and goes over, there's 2 oil towers in this field, in this oil field. And he shoves Cece in one and Bella in the other. And I remember reading that the opening was so small that when he shoved Bella in, it was too small for her, so he had to use force to push her in. And I remember reading that was proven because there was a tuft of Bella's hair on the side of the tank that he shoved her into. Like like when you open the hatch, there's like the sides of the hole. On one of the sides of that hole, there was a piece, like a tuft of Bella's hair that had been pulled out because he shoved her so hard through that hole. And then he just goes to work.
So, why don't we believe this confession is correct?
So Stephanie Harlow goes over each of the confessions in one of her videos. I don't remember which one it was, but she goes over each confession in one of her videos. And she said the same thing that I think. She was like, I don't think Chris told the truth. I don't think we'll ever know the truth, but I think this is as close as we are right now to the truth. I personally don't think that Chris told the truth, because if Chris tells the truth, he loses all the attention that he could have. And Chris is all about that attention. There are literal fucking TV interviews where Chris is just reveling in the attention and just saying things like emotional discussion, or like, and he would just say the same words over and over again. Like, he was like, if they're safe, I want them back. And if they're not safe, I don't want to think about that. I just want them back. Like, he would just say the same things over and over again. But he was like thriving on it because he was on TV. You know, he thought that that was like a big deal. I don't think Chris will ever tell the truth, like the full truth, because I don't think that Chris wants to lose that popularity that he could have.
I don't understand what he could be leaving out that is worse than what he just said.
I personally think he claims that he killed the girls at the oil field, and I don't know if I believe that. I personally think that he killed the girls at the house. According to him, he said that he was just on autopilot and he did not know what he was going to do when he got there to the oil field. I either, one of two things. I think that he either premeditated the murder, and that's why we'll never find out the truth, because there was like weeks of planning that went into this. Or I think that he killed the girls in a different place. Allegedly. I don't know. You know, this is alleged. This is something that I'm thinking. But I think that one of those two things is the reason that we'll never know the truth about Chris.
I what you just told me is horrible, and I'm glad we're not on video right now for reasons. But yeah, that is horrible. I don't think it was premeditated. If it was, he probably would have thought a little harder and remembered, hey, if I'm going to try to pretend she's gone, I should probably get rid of like clothes and shoes. And, doesn't had a lot of planning involved.
I don't know. Like I said, I just don't think it's the 100% truth. And there's other people out there, like I said, Stephanie Harlow thinks the same thing. I don't think this is the 100% truth. I don't think we're ever going to get the 100% truth from him. And that's just me, personally. I don't know.
I guess I don't really need to know any more than this. Where did this happen at?
Colorado.
Do they have the death penalty in Colorado?
No, he has life sentences.
I hope he gets tortured constantly.
He has like 3
day.
life. Let me look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure he has 3 life sentences and then another additional sentence for unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Okay. He was sentenced to 48 years for the unlawful termination of the pregnancy, and he had 3 consecutive life sentences with no possibility for parole. So 20 essentially
rape.
Yeah.
I hope
essentially what we're looking at is 25 years plus 48, and he's already in his 30s. So even if he was only serving the 48 years, even then he wouldn't have gotten out until he was like 70.
He said 25. What is life, 25?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that life is 25. I could be wrong, but I remember reading somewhere when I was in high school that a life sentence wasn't actually a life sentence. It was just like this many years. And I think I read that it was 25. It could be more than that, but I'm pretty sure that a life sentence is 25 years. Unless it's like something like the possibility of parole. But like, the woman that killed Selena, that singer?
Yeah, vaguely.
She was sentenced to life, and she'll be eligible for parole in 2025. Or she won't be eligible for parole. She'll be released in 2025.
Well,
so, like, there is a set time that is life.
So I'm hoping that on the very last day before he's able to get out, he's murdered. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be.
He's not going to get out. Like I said, even if all he was serving was the 48 years for the unlawful termination of Nico's pregnancy, he wouldn't get out until he was in his 70s, and he still has 25 to serve on top of that. At the very least, 25 to serve on top of that.
No.
So he won't be getting out. Unless, of course, he's appealing everything right now. I don't know why he's appealing anything. He's literally admitted to this shit. But he's appealing. Also, I remember when I said that we would talk about a letter that he wrote to his mother.
Yeah.
So I have some notes. And there's 2 things that I want to tell you that he said. He said that he is a man of God, and being in jail does not change that. Which is... Okay. Sure. Whatever.
Jesus
and he
hates
also
you.
says that he is still a father.
No, you're not.
I'm sorry. No, you're not. You stopped being a father when you decided to smother the life out of your 2 babies. Like, nothing that he did or said could convince me that he's still a father at this point, because he killed 2 of his children.
With their security blanket.
Literally. Like, and like, I'm one of those people, I believe in innocence until proven guilty, unless you confess. And he has confessed. And this, like we've talked about this before. Everybody's like, well, Jesse, Miss Kelly confessed. No, he was coerced to confess. Everything with Chris Watts was recorded from the time that he took the polygraph to the time that he admitted and was arrested, to, you know, all of that stuff. So that's the big difference between these two cases.
He also knew where they were.
Yes, he did also know where their bodies were, which is something that Jesse Misskelley did not know, and he also couldn't identify the victims properly. So you have to remember those things, like when you're talking about, oh, well, he could have been forced to confess, except there were too many. If he was forced to confess, he would have gotten a lot more things wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got too much right. He got the cause of death right, the location of the bodies right, what they were found in right, you know, the timeline right. You know, if he got all this stuff right, it wasn't a forced confession.
Right.
Do you have anything to add?
Fuck this guy.
I mean, yeah, fuck this guy.
I don't know. I think this one's hitting me more just because he's a father, and as a father, I can't even fathom what he did.
It's frustrating. Like, I can't, like, I'm not even a parent, but like, my mom always said, my mother and I have a very strange relationship, but my mom and I have always been close. And one thing that my mom always told me, she was like, you come first because you didn't ask to be here. So you come first. And being raised that way and being taught that as a child, like, that's the way that I think of any children that I would have in the future. I don't understand how you go from wanting these children and loving these kids and changing their diapers and bathing them and putting them to bed every night and feeding them to all of a sudden killing them. Like, I just don't understand.
I don't understand. I mean, I guess the most likely scenario is that his kids saw. So they were witnesses. It's the only thing I can think of. I mean, the other option is that, oh, well, the girl that I'm seeing doesn't want kids, so I can't keep these kids. And
I think that Chris wanted a full redo. Like, and that's something that Stephanie Harlow has said in her videos as well. And I remember agreeing with her when she first said it. Because if you just didn't want to be married anymore and you just didn't want to have your kids anymore, you could have signed away your parental rights and divorced your wife and let her take the kids. He wanted a complete do-over. He didn't want any kids following him into his new life with Nicole. He didn't want his ex-wife following him into his new life with Nicole. He didn't want any babies following him into his new life. You know, I honestly think he wanted a complete do-over. Like, he wanted the button from Clicker, the remote from Clicker, and wanted to go back in time.
well, I hope he enjoys his new life with Bubba.
Yeah, really. I think what gets me the most is he tries to get sympathy because he's like, well, every time I close my eyes, I hear Bella saying, no, daddy. And I'm like, I hope you do. I don't believe that you do, but I fucking hope you do.
I fucking
I
hope
hope
it
you
never
hear that
stops.
for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Because she trusted you. You were her father. Like, there's literally a video, and I didn't send this to you because I knew that if I sent this to you and then told you what he did to his kids, that it would probably have broke you. Like, I you know, I knew you were going to cry, and I didn't want to make it worse. But there's literally a video of Bella singing a song about her daddy being a hero to her.
Ugh.
And, like, talking about all the stuff that he does for her. And, like, it's just, like, the cutest thing. And then, like, you know, he's like, well, I hear that every time I close my eyes. I hope you fucking do. That's how this little girl looked at you, was like you were her hero and you did everything for her and she was so proud of you. And you fucking killed her. I hope you hear that shit for the rest of your life. I hope you never get any peace or I hope you never get another peaceful minute of sleep. Because you fucking killed your kids.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. He deserves the darkest reaches of hell.
Oh, yeah.
On Earth. And hell.
Yeah. Like, and
literal hell as well.
Literal hell. It's just like it's one of those cases, and that's why I wanted to cover this case. I know that we talk a lot about child murder, but this one is something called familicide, I believe. And they actually talk about it, like some of the facts on the Netflix documentary are like are that most of the time when somebody murders their entire family, it's a man. You know, like they're basically warning people against this kind of thing happening because it's a real thing. It's a phenomenon, and they don't know what causes it, or if people are just selfish, or if it's like something mental that causes it, because that's exactly like, you know, the Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
That was a familicide as well.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about it just because it's something that happens a little bit more commonly than people think.
It's terrible.
So what are you going to plug, Steven?
A knife in that guy.
I mean, I agree.
Sorry. Anyways, I don't normally like to promote murder on this podcast, but some people deserve it.
I mean, now you see why at the start of the podcast I was like, we are not fucking victim blaming. The only person that we're going to rip on is Chris. That's it. Fucking no. We're not gonna, like, I don't put up with victim blaming at the best of times, but in this case specifically, I will not do it. Like, that's why I was like, if you love Chris Watts and you're just going to rip on me and tell me how horrible Shanann was and how she deserved to die, then please do not watch this episode because...
Oh, you can fuck right off. I'm sorry. I don't care if you are a loyal listener. You can fuck right off.
Like, I won't put up with victim blaming. And that's just me, because I feel like nobody deserves to be, like, unless you've murdered somebody, you don't deserve to ever have that happen to you. You know, I feel the same way about, like, the Casey Anthony case. Like, sometimes people are like, oh, Kaylee was just too much for her mom to handle, so she just gave her some Xanax every now and again or whatever. And I'm like, no. It's not Kaylee's fault. It's Casey's fault. People do that commonly, like, when they want to defend the murderer or the person that did something bad. And I'm like, no, we don't do that here.
There's people that date Charles Manson, or dated Charles Manson. So there's crazy people everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry.
Just wait, guys. We're going to be doing a Charles Manson episode once we get finished up with the Netflix Unsolved Comedies, and I believe that I'm going to actually do that one with both of my sisters-in-laws. Unsolved Mysteries, yeah. And I believe that I'm going to actually invite both of my sister-in-laws to do that episode with us, both of your cousins, because they both love Charles Manson. So we'll probably have Kelsey and Dara for that one.
They may enjoy the case, but I don't think they love Charles Manson.
No, you're right. They enjoy the case. I shouldn't have said that like that. But they love the Manson.
They're not one of the ones that like to date Charles Manson. Okay, let's make this clear.
No. Yes, they think that Charles Manson is a fucking horrible person as well, but they enjoy the case. And I think we're gonna try to do a Pazuzu Alvaro case as well. So if there are any other cases that you guys would like us to cover,
oh yeah, let's plug the pluggables. So you can find me on Dragon Blazer Productions on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the YouTubes. You can also find me on Twitter at Dragon Blazer Pro.
Yes, and you can find the Unsolved Comedies page on Instagram, unsolved_comedies. And actually, I'm going to try to this week get a Twitter set up and maybe even like a Facebook set up for it. So we'll see about that. If you guys need to give us any information or anything like that, be sure to hit us up on one of those pluggables.
Indeed.
All right, Steven. I'll let you close this one out because you feel so passionately about this case.
Holy shit, that got dark.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great evening.
this is Stefan from Unsolved Comedies. So, if you have any theories on the case that we just discussed, please mention it in the comment section. And also like and subscribe my page, Dragon Blazer Productions. Right there. Right there. Just, click on that. Subscribe. There's a little thumbs up. Like it. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, I'm Steven from many different podcasts like Drunk Like Me, Pro Wrestling Apologist, The Rage and Blaze Show, and of course, That Got Dark. So, please like and subscribe